everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Soul Streams, Virgo season edition.
I know. It's already Virgo season. Can you believe it?
It's not yet, Ricky, but it's getting
I
close.
it's itching closer. It's
Well,
the
when we
Aries
when
in
we
me.
record it, we should say when as
Yes,
we record it, it's not quite. We were talking about in true Virgo fashion. I have so
uh,
many pages.
totally.
Don't worry, we're not going to get into all the nitty gritties of this stuff today, but it's funny how sometimes whatever the energy of the season, I actually see it come through in my prep process. It's wild.
Totally. And it's a testament because like we know that if you know astrology that it's eclipse season is here.
Yeah.
Um
Ugh.
and when eclipse season comes, you know that there's going to be a lot on to unpack. And I think Virgo season doesn't disappoint. And
Oh,
it's just it's an interesting time that we're in, which we'll talk about in a little bit because Virgo, there's when planets enter Virgo, it has to have relationships with planets that are in um Aries and Aquarius, and we have a lot of planets that are in Aries and Aquarius. And it's an interesting season because as these planets are dancing together, I feel like we're gonna feel this tug. We're gonna feel the energy, and I think it's important to kind of, in very Virgo fashion, be prepared, but also be open at the same token. Be prepared that there's all of this energy happening, but
yeah.
also allow yourself to be willing to go with the flow. It's kind of like the reality check that we're going to get, that I can't force, I can't control everything. I can know the energy, but part of it is going with the flow.
Well, and part of it is actually being able to live it too, right? So if we get too
Yeah.
programmed in and sort of, what exactly we're going to do or what exactly is going to happen, it takes away some of the being in the moment. But it's thinking when you're talking about the relationship between Virgo, and by the way, Virgo season begins Friday, August 22nd. So that's
Woohoo.
leading into it. And because we have planets in Pluto in Aquarius, and we have Saturn and Neptune are in Aries, and both of those, all those three in the early degrees, both Aquarius and Aries is a quincunx with Virgo energy. And so,
Yeah.
Ricky, I think, and we have this, so boom, 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 right? Any of these planets coming into Virgo are going to automatically have this quincunx relationship with Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. And for me, with the quincunx, which is 150 degrees apart, so you can also think
Yeah.
five signs apart, right? It's just short of an opposition.
Yeah.
And there's something about, and this is great because quincunx energy, it actually is associated with the Virgo archetype. So
Yep.
we actually have Virgo the sign
Times two.
times, yeah, exactly. So my favorite word, and many astrologers use it for quincunx, is that an adjustment needs to be made. And
Yeah.
another word we sometimes use for quincunx is signs or planets that are in aversion with each other. And so it's
Yeah.
almost like the way I've heard it described that so I think is very useful. It's almost as though they don't know they're there. There's something about like they don't recognize each other. And then I've heard it said, and they don't even know if they actually would want to recognize each other or work with each other, even if they are there. So
Yeah.
there's something about what do we have to do between those two energies to get them into a space where there is something possible together. It's not a negative aspect. There's no negative
No.
things going on here, but it's something that can feel kind of foreign, maybe feel annoying or irritating, and we would rather
Yeah.
brush it off and no, just I don't want you in my kind of space sort of energy.
Yeah.
I think of it sort of
Totally.
as if it's the 150 degrees, if a quincunx comes before an opposition, it's almost like it's not quite popped out. I don't know. It's like there's something about it's like it's tucked in that last little curve before it comes into the opposition. This is me
Yeah.
making things up, but
No,
it works for
I
me
I
metaphorically.
I love the word annoying because that's the word that I always feel into. I'm sorry, I do because there's something about I relate to this because I'm actually pretty much I would say the people that I've been closest to have very strong Virgo energy, which is very different for me because I have such strong Aries energy, and you
Yeah.
would think that I couldn't or we couldn't make that work. But I will tell you, I get annoyed with Aries energy, I mean Virgo energy all the time. I can't comprehend how much they have to think and process things before they can take action. And I'm like, "Hold up." I was like, "Why are you thinking of all this? Just do it." And they're like, well, how do you just do it? Like, no, you need to process, like, you need to have everything organized, everything. And there's a natural kind of frustration that occurs. But I will tell you that all of the greatest work that I've ever done was with the Virgo energy and how we were able to find our similarities together and how we were able to mesh our energies together. And that's really, I think, a highlight of the quincunx is that when you're able to find that common ground where we can blend together, it's powerful.
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful. And I feel like that is the potential, one of the potentials of the season ahead. If you are willing to make change and make adjustments with what needs to happen, the growth that can occur because of that can be very beautiful, can be very exciting, because there is a reward for when you do adapt or when you do adjust. And I feel like, yes, there can be frustrations. Yes, you could feel that, but I always say this, like, if you can lean into the other side, lead with curiosity and less judgment. Well,
Yeah.
why is it this way? Why do I feel what I feel? Or why don't I feel anything? Like you said earlier, if I can't see that, why am I experiencing this? I should lean into that and ask myself, you're starting to create that bridge. And I think ultimately I like your parallel of what you're saying. If we look at the quincunx as like almost the bridge, which would be the opposition, it's almost
Yeah.
like we just need to like align it a little bit more to get that straightness of what
Oh,
the
yeah, just
opposition would
sing the
be.
bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if we could do that, it creates what the opposition does, which is illumination.
Yeah.
It brings something to the surface for us. And I think that's what the reward could be is, oh, I get it. Or, oh, this is what I needed to see the whole time. Like that type of energy is so possible during the season. But there's something to this that we start the season off right away on this new moon on the 23rd with this Virgo, Aries, Aquarius dimension that is being activated. And I think it's ironic that it's on a new moon, I don't think it's random either. Because we often look at new moons, a lot of people would look at it as like a seed that we're planting. But when it's receiving stress or annoyance from Aries and Aquarius, what kind of seeds are you planting? What are you really intentionally putting forth? Are you intentionally putting forth annoyance and frustration? Are you putting out that like that it could totally happen here. Um, there's more I want to get into with it, but I want to kind of I don't know if you had anything on that.
Well, it's good, but you could also be missing the gifts, right? That's the thing.
Yeah,
Sometimes the annoyance or the thing, I don't get it, or this doesn't work together. I don't understand you. I don't get it. It makes it very easy to just like, again, go away. One of the things
yeah,
I wish well, I'll say it now, but when I was mentioning how things that are in quincunx or energy and aversion means that there's nothing in common. When we say nothing in common, we mean that the two signs, like let's use Virgo and Aries, for example, they're a different quality, meaning one's yin, one's yang, right?
yeah,
They're different modes or or modalities, right? So Virgo is mutable and Aries is cardinal, and they're different elements, right? So Virgo is earth and Aries is fire. So when you're thinking about quincunx, always there's no commonality in those things.
yeah,
So that doesn't mean that there's not other things that could be similar. And everything, the whole zodiac, and just like our whole system inside ourselves, works together.
yeah,
When we lead into this new moon, which is either going to be 11:06 p.m. Pacific time on the 22nd, or it will be early in the morning if you're Eastern time, or I think most other time zones moves it into the 23rd. So
yeah,
that new moon, the sun and the moon, because a new moon is a conjunction of the sun and the moon, that is at 0 degrees Virgo 23 minutes, and it forms a yod at
yeah,
that time, right? So there's a quincunx between the sun and the moon and Saturn and Neptune that are in
yeah.
the beginning of Aries. And it also forms a quincunx with Pluto
Pluto.
retrograde. Yeah, at 1 degrees Aquarius. So all this stuff we just talked about that sets up the whole season, this lunation, and it's the last lunation we have before we move into eclipse season. I think
Yeah,
it is like this big imprint. And one thing
totally.
more, and I know we have a lot of unpacking to do with it, but in this particular lunation, the ruler of the new moon, because it's in Virgo, is Mercury. So Mercury is kind of like, I don't know, the guardian or the steward or the overseer kind of this
Yeah.
new moon. And it is in Leo.
Yeah.
And it is sextile Mars in Libra. And to me, when you put Mercury and Mars together in sextile, both Mercury and Mars have to do with movement. They both like action.
Yeah.
So there's something about the action is supported here. And by the way, a new moon, if you think about new moon energy as being the beginning of the cycle and planting the seed and the initiation, it itself has inherent Aries energy in it.
Totally.
So there's this sort of boost. I have a little note here written down that our actions are supported, especially when they're in line with the new thing that comes after we make an adjustment. Because I think this whole season is asking us to make adjustments. It could be physically, it could be mentally, it could be emotionally, it could
Yeah.
be spiritually. Ricky, you and I just had a great conversation before this personally about how you and I are both making what for us feels like big adjustments, but you and I both use the word unlearning. Unlearning
Yeah.
actually is more so than like layering things on. So I think
Totally.
this new moon asks us, what is the adjustment to restore a natural balance? And please don't hear balance as everything is exactly 50-50.
Yeah.
That's not what I mean by balance. I mean, what does it mean to restore the actual nature of yourself or the actual nature of
Totally.
what something really is? Because
Yeah.
sometimes with Virgo energy, and again, we know we have the South Node in Virgo right now as well. There can be distortions around the facts, the accuracy, what's real, what's actually working.
Yeah.
Now, what else do
And I
you?
think that I love what you said right there because I could totally see that concept of what is accurate, what is true, what is the information that I have, because Uranus is squaring this new moon at the same time in Gemini. And there can be, I would not be surprised having Uranus in Gemini, having the new moon in Virgo, both are Mercury ruled. I would not be surprised if there are incoming breakthroughs or incoming communication, whether those are internal or external, that are catalysts of the need of adjustments or change that need to happen. The thing that I thought was unique is that both Saturn and Neptune and then Pluto are all retrograde during
Yeah.
this yod, which I thought was unique because I think there's this feeling to me when I saw that within Saturn and within Neptune and within Pluto, there's a desire within Aries to want to initiate experiences and want to do something. And Aquarius wants to make change that they know is going to help the greater good in some way, shape, or form. But when these energies are retrograde for me, it's almost as if I can't do that just yet. And
Yeah.
it's almost like I either don't have enough information, or I don't have the ideas, or I don't have the process in place. And this is where I bring Virgo into the room because Virgo helps us create an order and a structure. They want to create some sort of process for things.
Ah,
And what may happen here is maybe our way of doing things or the way that we need to take action or how we're doing something, it needs to change. Like there needs to be a pivot point. And I'm wondering if Uranus to the new moon is the flash of insight, the light bulb that clicks for somebody
yeah.
where it's like, oh, the way that I've been taking action in the past or the way that I've done things, because there is this component to me that there can be a very reflective quality of how did I used to do things because that didn't work for me. Because Virgo always to me is about improvement, not for the purpose of perfection, but just to do and be better. And there's this desire, I want to do better, I want to be better, I want to make something happen. And I feel like there's something that speaks to this about something internally that might have been an obstacle or a challenge that was not allowing for the full direction to unfold or something like this. So, and then what's ironic is you brought Mars, and Mars rules that Saturn and that Neptune and Aries
Right.
retrograde. And
Yes.
Mars in Libra has this component to it that's measuring its commitments.
Mm.
Like, how am I committed? Where am I committed? How far am I committed? I always joke about this with Mars and Libra. If you have Mars and Libra, we find sometimes like they can either be overcommit, like they can commit to so many different things. And what happens is I'm wondering if there's this energy to this that like you may have maybe no ideas and this is an idea that comes through, or you're so stretched. And if you're about to initiate something that your desire is to help others or do something for others, how sustainable is that right now for you? There's like, I almost feels like a blessing here because the yod or the yod talks about that concept of a fated quality can unfold here, right? And it's almost as if is the universe trying to come down and not necessarily touch something in the physical world, but touch something in the internal world. Like it feels like a God wants to touch a part of you.
Ooh, this
That's
is
kind of what I feel.
no, I love it. So I made a couple notes as you were talking just because it was coming through. You talked about systems or the system and how Virgo likes things to be systematic, but it made me think about how Aquarius, which is the sign Pluto is in, also is very much into systems that make the world better or things
Yeah.
better. And Saturn itself is a planet that also enjoys systems. And so
And
every
structure.
every point in this yod has something to do with systems, something to do with understanding the system, whether it's the external system, the internal system, right? I
Yeah.
work with parts work, internal family systems, right? All
Yeah.
these systems. And I was thinking with the yod, because wherever the point is, right? This is the new moon, the sun and the moon are at the point of the yod, or the finger of fate, or the finger of destiny, we might call it.
Yeah.
I had made a note that it's is the destiny to use discernment. And I think
Ooh, I
what
love that.
and you were already articulating this. I just put different words on it. And this has come up in my own life. You were talking about how Virgo wants to do better. It's not about being perfect. I absolutely just agree
Yeah.
with that. But is the things that we can do that are better, that could make things a little bit better. But the question is oftentimes the things we do don't make things better. And oftentimes in our trying to make things better, we actually make them worse. And I mean, let me just raise my hand because I'm just saying, calling myself
I
out.
think we all do it.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm really talented. It's a special power of mine. Yeah. Here, let me fix all this and fuck it all up, right? So
Yeah.
here we go. But I also put a note that says, well, we can only do better when we know better. And I
Yeah.
think what you were talking about, that something coming in, a shift in our consciousness, because I was really with you and feeling this, that with the planets retrograding, we can't quite do it yet. Sometimes that internal adjustment is just we need to accept something. This
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a huge, like my whole life is changing.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm actually, I think at this point, before I run ahead of things, because I feel like I could go in so many directions.
Yeah.
Will you share the gene key? And I want to read the Chandra
Oh
symbol
yeah.
because I think this will give us like a little more of a right brain engagement with this energy, but it's so on point.
Totally. So this specific lunation is tied to gene key 59. Um, that is the gene key of dishonesty. And or it's the shadow of dishonesty, I apologize. And it is the city of transparency. And what this gets into is how honest are we with ourselves? And this specific gene key shares a partnership with gene key 55, which is the shadow of victimization.
Oh, what?
And so there's something to this, and he'll talk, and I really encourage people to study and research these two gene keys or contemplate them because they do bring up within ourselves our own pain points and traumas because this specific signature is tied to different forms of traumas, and he talks about it. If you ever, he has so many videos where Richard Rudd in the Gene Keys talks about this. And what I would say is that the goal and the desire of this gene key is intimacy.
Mm.
And intimacy begins from within and being able to be intimate with yourself. And so there's something about this that requires a radical sense of self honesty. And one thing that you and I were talking about is how can I know if I'm being honest with myself?
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know whether you're lying to yourself or not until something is shown to you to say that you're not being honest with yourself.
Oh, this could be the moment, Square, you're honest.
Ex- And what happens is that there's something to this gene key though that we could bridge into intimacy because I always say with this gene key, how can we experience intimacy with another if we don't even know what that feels like from within? Is it conditional then? Is it conditional intimacy? Is it conditional like a conditional like and love? This is about allowing for ourselves to be so completely transparent and vulnerable within ourselves that we actually radiate that into the world. It's somehow connects to a level of freedom. A freedom that I don't know if we could fully comprehend unless we fully have owned our own shame, our own guilt, our own pain, our own hurt.
All our parts, that's what this is, right? There's something about
100%.
back to the system. It's like, do I know my own system? Have I accepted my own system? Whether you call that
Yeah.
parts, we call it planets in astrology. Astrology is
Yeah.
automatically parts work because we're looking at
You can
parts.
see it. Exactly. And that's such a and the other thing I was going to say, which I think will parlay into you, is that Uranus and Uranus and Mars has a lot to do with the Tower and the Tarot, right? Am I willing to do like an inner kind of blow up in order to create the change in my world? Like there may be something I need to kind of see that could be very shocking in the sense where it's not what I thought, but I will say that it's what could pave way to freedom. It is literally paving into freedom. And I think that ties into what I feel like you're about to get into with the
Yeah.
Chandra symbol.
And it also might be something you've never known, at
No,
least in this lifetime,
especially
right?
with your aunt. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So this is the thing, like this, and you made a beautiful comment around how could I have intimacy with someone else if I don't have intimacy with myself? And I'm going to flip it around and say the other way is true as well.
Yeah.
Right? How could I have intimacy with myself if I can't? You can see it both ways. So I'm saying some
Totally.
of us lean more towards one side. They they're not separate. Right? This is
No.
the same thing with the whole Aries Libra axis, right? That is
Yes.
not separate. So I feel like there's something about recognizing this, but yes, now I'm going to go to the
Yeah.
Chandra symbol. And so in this case, we're rounding up because this new moon is will be 0 degrees Virgo 23 minutes, or rounding up to 1 degree. So, Rick, you just talked about something blowing up on the inside, or would you be willing to let something blow up on the inside? And the key header here is a volcano erupting at night. And I'll read a little bit of what this is from Elias Lonsdale's book called Inside Degrees on the Chandra symbols.
Yeah.
And he says, burning through the restrictions of the day. And you can think about this, the difference between day is tends to be conscious, what we can see, and night tends to be the things that are more unconscious, that are less seen or more inner. It says, taking on and transmuting the world of ordinary consciousness, inwardly erupting with all that it leaves out, you become a conduit for the suppressed, the repressed, and the denied facets of self and life, exposing yourself to the onslaught of conventional ideas and their consequences. Aching and longing to turn the world around, you are given to subtle or obvious ways to channel and express what lives inside. Now, there's a little more, but I feel like that's enough to get us going here. But I will say it says towards the end here, saturated with deep impressions of what this earth is moving through, you are being given the chance to stand in for that, to bring it, and perhaps even to become it. So there's
Mm.
something about this coming undone, this volcano erupting on the
Yeah.
inside, this shock, this, and whether it's a blowing something up that needs to go away, or whether it's blowing up to clear the way for something I've never
Totally.
known, any of those things are possible, right?
100%.
But this sets the stage. I mean, this literally is the beginning of Virgo season, right? We've
Yeah.
all
And I think
got
it and I think it's the role model. I feel like it really does set the tone because what's going to happen as the season continues, almost every aspect that you look at,
that.
it almost models this sort of vibration in a way. Of course, yes, the planets change a little bit.
Yeah.
The themes might adjust, but it's the same kind of feeling, I think, as we pave way through the whole season.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this, everyone?
Yeah.
You don't have a choice how you feel about it, but we'd love to hear in the comments if any
Yes.
feedback you have. So the first planet that jumps into the scene is the sun here. Now after the
Yeah.
moon, now we're moving to the sun because on the 23rd or the 24th, the sun will quincunx Saturn and Neptune. It will square Uranus exactly, and it will also quincunx Pluto. Now all of that stuff was already happening with the new moon because the moon and the sun are
Yeah.
conjunct there, but I wanted to pause for a second and say, what is the sun about, right? Let's talk about this because if the sun is having all this activity to make adjustments and to realign and restructure, right? Or think about commitments, which is a Saturn thing, or Neptune to soften and release and dissolve and have a new connection with something greater, or the Uranian thing, which is right to liberate or
Yeah.
break free or somehow have these moments of, whoa, who am I really? It feels different. Or Pluto to transform and empower, right? That's a lot going on with the sun. And the
Yeah.
sun is the center of the solar system, and in ourselves, the center of ourself. So it
Totally.
represents self and sense of purpose and the core energy or the core creative vitality we run on. So there's almost like this question of what is at the center of me? What is, and I'm going to use the word heart. Heart can fit with lots of planets.
Totally.
In esoteric astrology, love wisdom is a ray really connected with the sun, right? So this idea of what is
Yeah.
at the heart, what is at the center of
Totally.
this? What am I about? What is my purpose? And we may find that with all of these adjustments coming online, if we want to flow with them, that something may shift in a way that you look out differently. And I don't know that you'll be able to even fully articulate some of this stuff. You and I have both have had some difficulty articulating the things that we're both going through. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily a problem.
No.
If you wake up one day and you just are a little different,
That's
amazing.
how. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what this just made me feel like as you described this? I don't know why, but I saw like a little boy or a little girl like sitting like in an arena with like these massive like gods that are around them. And it's like this feeling of like this young, innocent, naive energy. And there's these players. You have like Uranus and Neptune and Saturn and Pluto. They're all looking at you. And it's almost like there's this feeling that I get that I could sense that's like, I don't know, like, how am I being empowered by this? Like, there's something that's very beautiful because you have all three of the transpersonal planets coming together.
Yep.
And you have Saturn, which is known as kind of that elder like energy.
And the
And
boundary
it's,
to and the boundary to the outer. So it's
yeah,
like,
so it's
yeah.
almost like, is he opening the door to allow for us to have access to these transpersonal experiences? And there's something about it that I just feel like this little boy and little girl have an opportunity. Like, there's something really powerful about this. And it may even happen on the new moon for some people because it's I feel like you're going to feel this energy right around this time frame. Like it's so active coming into it that that whole weekend I think is going to be um
Yes.
you may feel it, and it may happen on the 23rd, 24th, or 25th is or the 23rd, 24th.
Yep.
Um and so I just think it's when you described it, I just saw this energy. It gave me like the feeling of like if you ever seen Percy Jackson, and it's
Mm.
like Percy Jackson's father is supposed to be Poseidon. And it's almost like this idea that like this boy that has no necessary powers, his father's a god, and he's looking at all of these gods around him. And it
Yeah.
just feels like that because Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus are have so much potential.
Oh.
Um, that it could be highly transformative. You might not know who you're becoming.
And those, I'm going to say this too, just to add to that, that those outer planets and also Saturn, everything we're talking about it's not just up in the sky, it's in you. So you might think,
Yeah,
here's the sun in yourself. And I like the idea of, because oftentimes inner child, I feel like is very connected with our spirit or essence, right? So
yeah,
there is a very connection with that. So whatever little person or little child you might feel inside there, especially that really wants to shine, that wants to feel
yeah,
like there's this purpose, that you also have these parts in you, this Saturn, this Neptune, this Uranus, this Pluto, and they all want things too. And so you might even imagine, like for yourself, like what would those conversations be like? What would those characters
yeah,
look like? What would they be doing? Maybe those planets
yeah,
are animals. Maybe they're not gods and people, right?
yeah. I would draw it out, paint it, like get creative with it. Like
Yeah.
allow yourself to create a story.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be interesting. Like tune into that energy and feel into what are these parts of yourself that are showing up.
Mm.
Um, and what do you feel like you're being pulled to?
And if you feel tired, if you feel stressed, if you feel depressed, if you feel hopeless, like I'm bringing up some words with these planets that can happen as well,
Oh
then
yeah.
then that's you're in the territory, right? And I'm not in
Yep.
any way celebrating those feelings, and I know it's really difficult, right? That suffering is real, and we have I feel like extra doses of it right now going on in the world. But
Yep.
when you feel that, it's almost like the question of, well, who's here?
Yeah.
is that Neptune. And then you, if you are into astrology more, even looking at your own chart can help you get more flavors of, oh, here's how I might have patterns around how I normally relate with Neptune energy, or here's how I normally
Totally.
relate with Saturn. Because the thing is that all they're all trying to get you to hear a different perspective. There's something in here that is not, it doesn't want to follow just the same old course. The quincunxes in particular let us know, to Ricky's point, that the connection bridge, it needs to swing a little bit.
Yeah.
So part of our curious or investigative process in this can be, oh, even if I feel really shitty on Saturday, who is here? What's going on? What story do I find myself in? What is it that can help me
Yeah.
swing that bridge? Yeah.
Totally.
And then it leads us, because on Monday the 25th, Venus enters Leo, and
Yep.
then there's the big Venus boom, right? So
Yes, we have a
Venus
huge Venus day.
Yeah, so Venus has in sextile with Uranus. There's a trine with Neptune and Saturn. It opposes Pluto. So again,
Pluto.
but now all of a sudden we just went from the sun to Venus. But I find that interesting because the sun and Venus are like brightest objects,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and Venus, one of the things when I think about when Venus comes to town and we're having these, different negotiations with Venus is, of course, we could talk for Venus for a long time, but part of it is, what do we actually want? What do we actually like? I mean, to me,
Yeah.
there, that Venus is in part the pleasure principle.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think checking in and feeling, is this actually what I want? And then the other piece, and I know you'll probably talk more about this, is like the Venus is a symbol of abundance, and even money is tied into this, also love and also creativity, but also receptivity. And oftentimes, when we find there's a lot of aspects to Venus, we're trying to negotiate or figure out what we actually want and then what might be in the way of us actually receiving it. And sometimes what we think we want, there's other parts of us that are afraid to receive it or that actually create blocks to receiving it. So,
Totally.
worth, self-love, right, really starts to hum, at least for me
Show up.
on this day. Yeah.
You know what else I made a note of is that on this day, the moon is in Libra.
Mm.
And Libra rules, sorry, Venus rules Libra.
Yeah.
And this is the 26th. And
Yes.
I made a note of that because I really thought that that was interesting because on that day, um, that Venus is almost like having a conversation with the moon in Libra.
Yes.
And so I love what you're saying because I feel like I would do a lot of self-work check-ins. Do I feel deserving of what it is that I want?
Mhm.
And how open am I to receiving what I want? And one of the quickest ways to figure out how receiving we are is to listen to how much we say yes versus how much we say no. Because I find that a lot of people, and we're not talking about people pleasing, that's a whole different thing. I'm talking about when opportunities show up for you, do you say yes? There was an exercise many years ago that I tried where I would only say yes when opportunities showed up. Even if in me I was like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. I would say yes to things like, hey, do you want to go out for dinner? Sure, let's do it. Because there's something about that that feels as if you don't know what opportunities can manifest when you say yes to the opportunities that are presented to you. And so I would be interested because Venus is sextiling Uranus on this day.
Mhm.
What I'm going to use the word random, but I don't think it's that random at all. Things or opportunities or events or experiences are showing up for you. And do I say yes or do I say no? And I feel like it can be a very empowering day. The thing that I wanted to also make a comment on is when Venus opposes Pluto, I look at this as like a come back to body moment. Like I really think this is an important day to come back to your body, which I think may feel a little bit of an internal struggle when the moon's in Libra, because there may be a natural feeling of energy to want to be around others or want to be around another person, whether I'm in a relationship or whatnot. But it's almost like if I follow that feeling of wanting to be around others, I may get a little bit of that Plutonian moment where I'm like, "Oh shit, like what did I do? Why am I here? What's happening here?" When in
Yeah.
reality what I think is being asked is that like you don't need other people to notice your shine. You need to notice your own shine. And having Venus in Leo, like, recognize yourself first. Like, make sure that you see your own sparkle. Like, make sure you don't need that outside energy to get that. And so
And
there could be something to this that's like, maybe you need that to kind of come back to body moment. That could then, maybe it's saying yes to yourself. As I'm just saying, maybe this is a chapter for you where you need to say yes to you.
yeah. And
And
you
there's opportunities where the universe is presenting that for yourself.
and if you're someone who says yes all the time and you recognize that
Yes.
that may be a thing, then this may be your chance to say no. But I was thinking that, and also with Venus in Leo, the ruler is the sun, and the sun is in Virgo. This takes us back to that we're in Virgo season, right? So
Yeah.
Virgo is a sign about being self-possessed. I don't mean in a creepy way, but it's about being complete unto oneself. That's why those goddesses associated with Virgo are not married. It's
Hmm.
not because they don't want to have sex or have relationship. It's because they don't need something else to define themselves. So this thing about your own sparkle, I feel like that adds in here too, that sort of getting this clear sense of, hey, this is also Virgo's about an accurate sense of self. But
Yeah.
sometimes we need the Leo, especially the Venus and Leo, we need to express or to try or do what makes us sparkle, and that's how we can kind of discover. So
Totally.
some ways I feel like this interesting combination, right? Because when you have something in Leo that's then ruled by something in Virgo, Leo and Virgo are really, really different.
Yes. Very.
So then the question then becomes actually that's an aversion as well, right? So then
Yeah.
we have the questions and how do they work together? Because the sun's the ruler. So there's and so there's always something about a ruler. There's a certain level of, it's helping or nourishing. So the question we might
Yeah.
say is how does that Venus in Leo, how does it need that sun in Virgo? And I think this gets down to the say yes or say no, right? The discernment thing that you
Yeah.
described.
I
Yeah.
just heard something as you said that. Like, I heard something along the lines of how, like, a self-care check, like, how am I doing my sparkling? Like, how
Yeah.
effective is my sparkle? Um, and how does my way of doing this need to kind of be improved upon? Like, how there could be something to this that may happen, and it maybe I need to turn it up. I need to do something.
Yeah.
I need to do something with this. Um, you know, how I'm presenting myself, how I'm showing myself. It's a lot of solar plexus energy for me. I feel it in my belly. Um, it's funny because it's the belly and the heart, and they're connected because the heart for us, like you were getting into earlier, and then the belly from that self confidence, that self worth
Yep.
center, could be
Yep,
very illuminated.
absolutely. Yep. Solar
Um,
plexus chakra is I mean, that is ultimately sun for me. It is that yellow
yeah,
kind of energy. And so power then becomes an issue here too, which is, and it's interesting
totally,
back to the body. I really like that you brought that in because the ruler being in Virgo adds body stuff in addition to
totally,
Venus opposed Pluto, right? So there's something about like if I think I'm in my sparkle, how does my body feel? Because sometimes the idea of how I think I'm supposed to sparkle is not necessarily in line with what is natural to me, and different ways you can flip this sort of story around. So there's something about,
yeah,
am I feeling it? And even when we say
totally,
the yes or no part of it, right? That sort of, because sometimes we say discernment, it makes it sound like it's all in the mind. And yes, that's of course part of it, but our body gives us cues all the time, whether it's a yes or a no.
100%. Yeah, and this would be a really important day to listen. Listen to your
Yeah.
body. I would not second guess it.
No. Nope.
Um, Interesting day for relationships. I just think it'll be an interesting day.
Hmm.
If we're in if there is difficulty in a relationship, if we know
Yeah.
that we're having a difficulty right now coming into eclipse season, this may be a day that I want to, it's an interesting day. There may be some things that could show up. I find a lot of times with my own clients, I will have more intense conversations about relationships around a Venus Pluto opposition, or if Uranus is
Yeah.
involved with Venus, about the sustainability or the longevity of a relationship. And I'm not saying that relationships are ending, but there's a
Yeah.
real desire for change. There's something needs to shift and change. Um, or something may be shown to us. Pluto loves to expose things, loves to bring things to the surface. And
Totally.
so it can be uncomfortable. And again, that Virgo part of this journey is asking us, well, how do I go forward from here? How can I do better? Be like, how can I do this? Like, I want to move forward, or I want, like, how can I continue to do this? Um, and sometimes that means that we need to evaluate those commitments. Is this the commitment I want to stay with, or do I need to let this one go?
Oh, there's a getting real here. And
Yeah,
so, like Venus Pluto opposition, Venus Pluto anything, you're right, tends to expose corruption and toxicity. That can be on a grand scale or on a little scale,
or
you know?
yeah,
I think it's interesting that we have also Venus trine Neptune and
Neptune.
Saturn, which means it could be easy to put on the rose-colored glasses and to just be like, oh, it's all fine, whatever. So, and there may be like an interesting back and forth between can't tolerate it, the Pluto opposition, with the level
Totally.
of are we going to get real? Because Neptune can help us get crystal clear, or it can help us be very diluted and distorted. And I think there's something available here about using, and this takes me back to the sun, which of course rules the Venus, but also we're in that Virgo season, is be willing to look at it for what it is.
Hmm.
There's room for all kinds of choices around it, but it's very difficult to make the best choice for yourself if you don't even know what's going on. So to me, step one is, do I have the courage and the guts, not easy, to actually confront Pluto, what is really going on, whether it's inside
Yeah,
myself or it's something in an
or
external relationship dynamic. Yeah.
totally,
Yeah. And which doesn't mean you have to say that discovering as is a totally separate from the decision what to do with it.
totally,
So
100%.
yeah. So we're gonna on Thursday, August 28th, there is a big transit, I would say, or we should say
Yeah.
maybe a very unusual transit that is Uranus sextile Neptune. And the
Yes.
last time we had one of these was May 1968. We are going to do a separate soul streams on this entirely because it deserves its own little category.
Yeah.
I will mention that the thinking back when, well, some of us, many of us, including me, weren't born when the last one happened,
Yeah.
which lets you know how old it is because I'm 51. So it was 57 years ago when this last exact one will be, and it's a slow process. So
Yep.
there'll be another exact hit of this in July 2026. But the keynotes I wrote down when you think about a sextile, which I always call sextiles sexy sextiles because like there's just
Yeah.
enough friction that it's not all the same, but there's this opportunity or an excitement if the two things come together. And Uranus and Neptune together, the notes I have is there can be a desire or an opportunity for more freedom of or freedom in either spiritual, religious, or beliefs in general. There's something about a freedom in being what I am, just as I am. So
Yeah.
some of us, this could be going through this cycle of not wanting to buy into sort of what the collective may have said, this is what life means,
Totally.
but this is what how we're supposed to look at it. There could be radical things around religious movements or groups. So
Huge. Yeah.
I don't know what you want to add to
That'd be interesting. That would be interesting for us to talk about and look at about in history when these two
late
have their
60s.
aspects. What
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
in the religious and spiritual sector?
Mhm.
But one thought that I just had here is that Uranus and Neptune are such interesting players for me because Uranus really wants to help us at an individual level decondition and unlearn what Saturn taught us. And it almost feels like Uranus is preparing us for Neptune. And in the sense where Neptune wants to help at some level dissolve and return back to what is the ultimate truth. And so I get this feeling here where if there are belief systems or ideologies or thoughts or values about something that we're thinking, because Uranus will be in Gemini, like the thoughts that we're having about something, this could actually feel like a pivot, a shift in the way that we perceive or we believe. We
Yes.
talk about unlearning. This feels like a significant opportunity of deconditioning what I've been taught, what I've learned, to unlearn something which actually may be in greater alignment with what the truth actually is. And I'm talking about capital T truth, not
Yep.
lower
Yep.
T truth. We're not talking about
Yep.
opinions. We're talking about liberation from opinions. We're talking about liberation from this. Um, so there's something to this that I think is unique. I would have to look at the dates. I didn't look in July of 2026, but I'd be interested to know if Neptune is direct because Neptune will be retrograde with this one.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if next year if Neptune is direct when they
Yeah.
have that next.
But yeah, but we'll do a separate thing. And I think there's just like it's the idea of unlearning and consciously embracing it is powerful for me right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you and I both have talked about this. We're feeling it, and I know other people that are feeling this as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Um, and so I think that's a really big transit to watch. For your next big one, I think I don't know if I have Saturn entering re-entering, I should say, Pisces on the first. Um, is that
Yeah.
your next one on your list?
Yeah, and I was thinking the reason why I think it's important we mention that is that, Saturn, when Saturn retrograde dips back into Pisces, it's a big deal because this is the final backtrack before it goes back, for its bigger chunk of time into Aries. And that's starting a whole, Saturn, any planet entering Aries starts a whole brand new, evolutionary cycle of that
Yeah.
archetype. And so there's just something to me about this. I would say I'm saying this to myself and to all of us. What back in the later degrees of Pisces land in yourself, in your life, in your chart needs some relooking or rechecking, or where do we need some closure? Where do we need to sort of let something go? Where do we need to revisit something? And because Saturn has so much to do with our overall reality structure, I feel like it's so important to not miss those adjustments. And I was looking back at my notes at the very beginning of this year numerologically being
Oh yeah.
a 9 year because it's 2025. And I have a whole bunch of notes on it. But one of the things I made a note is that, and I think this comes from Jean Morris's book on numerology, which is currently my favorite numerology book. But she talks about the nine, is what she says. The nine represents our last earthly lesson, which is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I bring this up because Saturn retrograde moving back into Pisces, Pisces is an archetype of forgiveness, and the North Node collectively is in Pisces. So
Mhm.
this, and if you don't like the word forgiveness, you can use acceptance, right? Truly, when we think in a full on Piscean, Neptunian way, there would be no need for forgiveness. But most of us, including myself here, are not to that point. So, but I'm saying if a different word works better for you, but what would it mean to write off the debt? What does it mean to let go of something that's been held on to? What does it mean to accept that everything is happening in its nature, even if it seems to be going against its nature, and that it's unfolding as it needs to?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I support all the individual actions. That's not what I mean here. But there's a bigger, broader view that I think this is a reminder of kind of the intention of the whole year when we take this little dip back in here.
Yeah. I love that you bring this up. And one of the thoughts that I would just say is if you could lean into and sense who you truly are, and that's kind of what you're getting into about this idea that in Pisces there would be no need for forgiveness, but forgiveness pays way for us to realize that we don't need it as well.
Right. Right.
It's part of the process to get to that stage. And I think what I would just say is remember who you are and be able to see yourself in other people. And if you could see yourself in others, it actually could help you on the path towards acceptance, allowance, and eventually forgiveness. Because there's a beautiful quote, I think it's in the Bible where it says, "Forgive those for they don't know what they did to you."
Mhm.
And the idea is that a lot of times what's hard for us to forgive is we're holding on to something that we don't want to necessarily. It's difficult because we don't want to either let go of something. We become attached. It's a huge ego
Yeah.
structure
Oh
dynamic,
my gosh. Yeah.
and in Pisces, it is a dissolving of that. And Saturn in Pisces has an essence of how can you build structures in the vastness of the ocean? And there's something to this that there needs to be the way that we do this needs to change. And so maybe the way in which we're approaching forgiveness or surrender or acceptance, we need to really approach it differently. Um, there could be a new way of how I'm gonna. I literally just had this conversation with someone this morning, and she looked at me. She's like, "I don't know how to forgive this person for what they did. I don't know how to do it." And and I say that sometimes it's not your time yet. If you feel in your heart that you don't have that within you, that is okay. Don't beat yourself up for it because you're just perpetuating it. Recognize that this is where I'm at right now and I'm not ready for that.
And that's
And
beautiful,
maybe I'll
Pisces.
check back in the future and say, how do I feel about this?
But what you just described, that is the Pisces. It's like I read something in a book recently. It was a beautiful, simple statement that forgiveness is not required for healing process, right? So this is the thing, but accepting that there's a part of me that's not ready to forgive, that is the Pisces energy, right? That
Totally.
is the allowance and the acceptance. So
Yeah. And one day in the future, it may come back up for you. But if
don't
you're not ready
know.
to right now, that's okay. And I think there's something to that, that having that compassion for yourself. And it's just interesting because I see these energies showing up now. And I feel like Saturn dipping into Pisces can totally bring this to the surface. Um, and I would just say, looking at your charts, look at Pisces, look at Saturn and Pisces, look at since March of 2023. What did I learn? What did Saturn teach me in the Pisces area of my chart?
Yeah.
Because this does have this culminating effect to it, this sense of completion, this sense of closure. Um, did you do what you felt Saturn was restructuring? Did you restructure what needed to be restructured in that area of your life?
Yep, I think that's a great advice, which leads us. That was September 1st, by the way, Saturn retrograde moving into Pisces, I think we said, but just to get us back on the calendar for a second.
Yeah,
Tuesday, September 2nd, Mercury will enter Virgo, so then it's going to go through all, very similar things that we talked about earlier with those quincunx energies as well. On Wednesday, September 3rd, Jupiter will
yeah,
try the North Node. And this really keeps on the same theme we just talked about with Saturn retrograde moving into Pisces, because the North Node is in Pisces. And traditionally, Jupiter rules Pisces. So this would be Jupiter trying the North Node in Pisces, traditionally
yeah.
ruling that itself. And this forgiveness piece, I think, becomes even more on point. And it also got me going down this big rabbit hole around Jupiter. And Jupiter is very important to me personally. And I'm reading Liz Green's new book, which is really excellent, by the way, on Jupiter, called By Jove. And she talks about how Jupiter actually is divine mind. And she talks about how divine mind is not air the way we talk about the air element and the air signs, but that it's not so rational, that it's tuned to or by the hidden dimensions of life. But the idea of Jupiter being divine mind, then from it comes divine breath. And we call that pneuma. And if anyone is familiar with Stoic philosophy, pneuma, there's a Tool song called Pneuma, which I was replaying myself this morning because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
Maynard's very into stoicism as far as I can tell. So a lot of time that the lyrics come through that way. But so divine breath comes from divine mind, and that divine breath is breathed into everything as fate. And Liz Green poses that Jupiter is a planet of fate. But what she means by fate is basically to be or become what one is, what one innately is. So it's not fate in the sense of some external thing is making it fated to be a certain way. It's more like how the acorn becomes an oak tree, right? That is the
mhm,
idea of Jupiter, which I think is so beautiful because when I work with Jupiter, I sometimes say it's your natural frequency. It's the natural way you move through life or your path. And so when you think about it as fate, and this is interesting because when we read some of the gene keys and Chandra symbols coming up, the word fate actually comes up in some of them. But I
yeah,
wanted to play around with this idea of what is your relationship? I'm saying this to all of us with fate. And what if you
mhm,
rethought about Jupiter as fate? And this comes from Liz Green. So let me say this. She says, quote, when we look later at Jupiter's placement in the natal chart, it might be helpful to remember this idea of the wisdom of Zeus, right? Zeus being the Greek form of Jupiter or close,
yeah,
which describes a plan or design of unfoldment inherent in every living thing. So again, it's not about predicting the future determined by some external fate. It's recognizing what we are, what we need to become, and that as we do that, becoming what we are, right? Stoics would say we're all sons becoming, right? Which is a
yeah,
beautiful way to think about it, right? The sun is not something, to me, there's a future, there's a becoming element in that piece. But that very being what we are and becoming what we need to become is the part we're called to play in this collective experience. And so I love that feeling of Jupiter. And my last little geek out moment is in Stoicism, pneuma, right, which we can think of as this divine breath. It is also considered the soul. And it says the soul is a hot, fiery breath that infuses the physical body. And this pneuma or soul is actually a mixture of air and fire. So when you think about Jupiter being a sky god, we can think
Yeah.
about that air. But remember, this air is different. This divine mind, it's different than what we
Yeah.
think of air. So for me, this, and it's so great because Jupiter is a planet of expanding consciousness. And in her book and in my current some other studies I'm doing as well, I'm feeling this new space opening. And I think that with Jupiter trine the North Node,
Totally.
Jupiter traditionally ruling the Node the whole time it's in Pisces, we all have this potential to have this renewed relationship with what am I actually? What
Yeah.
am I meant to become? And the reason we say fate is because we, like the acorn can't turn itself into a different seed. But we
Mm-mm.
can make choices. This is not to take away in any way our free will to make choices, but the more we can get comfortable with and get to know, you brought this up at the beginning of our episode here, to really going inside and knowing yourself to the extent you can.
Yeah.
What is that metaphorical seed I come from can be so helpful in understanding what I need to become. Because if I'm a cherry tree, that's a really different process. And I might want to choose to plant myself in a different place and I might want to have different
Yeah.
things around me. And I might, so yeah, I just love that idea.
Totally.
Mm.
You know what I was thinking about too, because in this transit, Jupiter will be in Cancer.
Yeah.
And so from this perspective, and this idea of becoming who you are innately, I would think in terms of there's something to this about we've talked about this before when you and I talked about Jupiter entering Cancer, about coming home.
Yes.
And there's something about this that who we innately are requires for us to come back home. And there's something about this that, like, when we do that, especially with that trine to that North Node in Pisces,
Yeah.
could we have that intuitive moment, that intuitive knowingness, or be able to reveal an element of who I am, or what seed am I? Um, like there can be something to this that could feel like, do I have a deeply self-aware moment where I'm able to sense what home is or who home is, what that, like understanding these things. It's interesting because I love this idea of, I was feeling into when you were reading this, I always looked at Jupiter as almost like an area, or tying to this feeling of like a quest, this journey that we take on. And if Jupiter is in Cancer, what does that quest look like? And having it trine that North Node, and knowing that in traditional astrology, Jupiter rules that North Node,
Yeah.
there's something to this that I feel like could definitely expand our consciousness in helping us locate, if we are going home, if
Yeah.
we are searching inside of ourselves for those deeper, whether it's about, I want to just feel safe in my body, I want to feel secure in my body, I want to feel like I am safe in here and I can go out into the world knowing that I'm safe. This could be an amazing transit for someone to actually be able to say that, but actually feel that. The
Yeah.
difference between knowing and feeling, that's what this could look like. Going from philosophical to embodied.
Which and we all know that change doesn't happen from the philosophical, intellectual
No,
insight. It comes from
that's
the
kind of like the vibe I'm getting. This
yeah.
feels like a deeply emotionally embodying moment. Um, and anytime a planet connects with the North and the South Node, these are very opportunistic moments where the choices and decisions that we make can point us more deeply in the direction of who we innately are.
Yeah.
So I would actually also think to myself, what are my patterns?
Mm.
And how are my patterns showing up for me right now? And this could be an opportunity for me to expand beyond those patterns that I've been making in my past. It
Mhm.
should be easier for me to make steps in the direction of growth than it would be to go to my patterns. Like there could be momentum, like the momentum is there. But I would ask is, what are my patterns? How have I repeated? Like if there's this choice or decision that is showing up for you around this chapter, it may require for you to open that your mind up, or open from within, and make a choice from that's in here. This feels like, again, an expansion of what's inside of you. This is huge.
And then I had this I had this image of, and maybe it's because it's Jupiter in Cancer, but I had this image of this, where's the garden I come from, metaphorically, because there's
Yeah,
something about this, like, and I was thinking about in personally in my own life, I'm in a place of being willing to let go of some of the things around how I was raised, which was very highly controlled. So this is part of like my letting go process. But in that same process, I've been really feeling into where do I come from? And one of the things, I come from a family of teachers. Both my parents were teachers, and I'm a teacher and I love teaching. So part of my
yeah,
garden come from a garden of teachers, right? So when I'm thinking about that, and so if there's a teacher seed in me, I can't help
yeah,
but be a teacher. I don't I mean, yes, we can say I'm an educator, but I can be doing any job and I would still be teaching. Once you start to feel into, oh, this is actually the seed that can't change, then Ricky, all the part you're talking about, shifting patterns and things, becomes easier, because then we're not also fighting
yeah.
against the nature of what I am.
Thing.
It's like, so I feel like there's like a two wave process coming in here at the same time.
Yeah. And that reminds me of Pisces being the fish. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And they go,
so
and then so can this is great. So then we can go right to the full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces
yes, on the 7th.
on the 7th, which is traditionally ruled by the Jupiter. So again,
Yep.
this season has been beautiful for me in the way that, at least how it's occurred to me, is it keeps pulling me. One thing keeps pulling me into the next thing.
Yeah,
The fishes,
totally.
right? Here's the Pisces fishes, right? They're swimming both those two different directions, and that doesn't need to be a problem. In fact, it kind of means, how do we actually work with two directions at the same time, instead of thinking that we somehow need to straighten them out and, put them in a linear.
Totally. Yeah. I think that so this full moon,
Mm.
I just I have the moon is opposing that Mercury, which means that Mercury is coming close to its cazimi with the sun.
Yes.
I have the in conjunct to Venus,
Mm.
um, the moon in conjunct to Venus,
Yep.
and then we have that trine with Jupiter, which we just kind of got into a little bit.
Yeah, which is still full on flowing here.
Yeah. And then we also have the moon is in conjunct with Mars.
Oh yeah.
And so what's unique is, I don't know how you feel about that orb right there, that 5-degree orb between well, it wouldn't be 5 degrees exact, but I'm saying between
Yeah, yeah.
Mars and Venus. If you would throw
I'm
five
a, I'm a,
degrees in
I'm a,
as
I'm a pretty flexible Orby
yeah,
person.
because that feels like we would be getting a little bit of another yod on this eclipse.
We are. Yep, I just put a note.
And
Also,
so
oh, Ricky, before you go, also the moon is conjunct the north node and the sun is conjunct the south node. So we have big time.
very
Yep,
close.
yep,
Yeah, this is a really close eclipse. So
yep,
what that just means technically is it's definitely a stronger felt energy than a partial eclipse.
yep.
Um, and so there's a lot happening on this specific full moon. Um, I wrote down the gene keys as well, which is the shadows of confusion and the
Ooh.
shadows of doubt,
Well, that's very Pisces.
which I think is perfect.
Yeah.
Um, and so I will just say there's so many different angles we can look at this full moon. What I would just say is, in your own personal charts, I would look to see if you have anything in the middle, like I would say between 10 and 20 degrees of the mutable signs.
Yeah.
I would be very interested to see how you are being activated and what planets or houses are being activated. If you know your chart, you could kind of get a glimpse of where these eclipses want to kind of either open up doors for you, or show you doors to your past. There could be something about this. I always say with an eclipse, it's a beautiful dance in the sense where there's a desire to propel us on our journey to evolve, to grow, right? And I always feel like in order for us to evolve and take that leap in that direction, it gives me the energy of the fool sometimes,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
is like where we are about to take that leap off a cliff. And what happens is that it requires an immense amount of courage, and it's also nerve-wracking at the same token.
Yeah, it's scary as shit. Let's just be
Yeah.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary to get out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone. And what's happening here is that the sun is on the south node, which I think is interesting.
Mhm.
And it's all in Virgo. And so the center of our solar system is sitting on the south node, which I always like to say sometimes is like could be looked at as like a cosmic garbage can. It's like what
Yeah.
is being released and taken away. The garbage man is coming, the trash man is coming. But
Judith Hill,
always,
I think Judith Hill says toilet bowl as
oh,
well.
toilet bowl. That's a great one too. What do you want to flush down the toilet today? But be careful because sometimes inside the toilet bowl, there's little nuggets of wisdom and there's some really rich treasures in there. So you want to be careful what you're flushing down that toilet or what you're
It's
throwing away.
Virgo, so it's extra funny here. You know that,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly. You want to be extra careful about what you're cleaning out.
Yeah.
But in that sense, if Virgo could represent like that sort of spring cleaning or the summer cleaning, what karmically wants to be cleansed? Like
Yeah.
what is being cleansed here? And from the sun, you've already talked about the sun earlier today. So when it comes to that core sense of purpose or identity or that vital force, what needs to be released or like, oh, this could be a very tiring day as well. This could be a day where some that are more sensitive, or if you have any planets that are around those repeat markers, may feel the absence of energy. This could be a little bit more of emotions are up and energy is down. Like we could feel that polarity, if that makes sense.
Well, and especially because eclipses already make us, it's a lunar eclipse, which means already, full moons, all that stuff is already in that
Yeah.
territory. Maybe think too with the mutable signs, right? Mutable signs and mutable energy is always about learning and adapting and shifting. They're the signs that bridge us into the next seasons, right? If you
Yeah.
think about it that way. And then my teacher, Laura Nalbandian, she would always say that mutable signs are getting relative perspective. So
Yeah.
part of what I think is happening for all of us is that where is it in my perspective or perception, whichever word you like better, but where is it that you need to look at something different? It's interesting. I'll read the Chandra symbol that goes with this one. So it is we're rounding up to 16 degrees Pisces because this full moon uh,
Yeah.
eclipse is 15 degrees Pisces, 22 minutes. So here we go with 16 Pisces. A peaceful child, talk about the fool energy. A peaceful child on a narrow ledge that overlooks a precipice. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to say the thing I'm going to read next. I did not read this in advance until you and I got on here to record. So I did not know when I made all my notes about Jupiter and fate what I was going to
Yeah.
what I'm going to read next, just so you know. So whenever I have those things happen, that synchronistic moments, I know that hopefully for all of us, but at least for me, I need to pay attention. Something's coming forward.
Totally.
Here's what it says about a peaceful child on a narrow ledge that overlooks a precipice. Fate has set the pattern. You are held fast by fate. Yet inwardly, you are so deeply and fundamentally free that you are actually submitting to your fate from a true and pure place.
Mm.
The situation you pull in is outwardly severe. You are a vast being trapped in a tiny form, and you cannot really go anywhere or do anything to change this. Instead, you are released by your outward bondage to dream, to remember, to envision, and to make cosmic connections. The inner life is boundlessly rich.
I love that. And kind of also,
Beautiful, right?
it does. And having that moon in Pisces on the north node feels like that energy. It feels like I don't know, just when you described it, freedom from like you are the the body in itself, like it was describing. It feels like there's a freedom point from this. And what I was gonna say as I was looking at the yod as well, knowing that Mars is in Libra and Venus is in Leo, that would mean that they're pointing over at that moon in Pisces. So this moon in Pisces and North Node in
Yes.
Pisces are ultra important for me. And what
Yes.
I just kept feeling just intuitively is that sometimes this is not everyone. If you're a Leo or a Libra, please don't take this personal. But sometimes Leos
That
and Libra,
possible? Sorry.
well, that's what I was gonna say. There's something about Leos and Libras that tend to could take things personal. or they tend to like things that are beautiful and that can have a natural materialistic energy about them. Pisces don't get two hoots about that when it comes to this. And there could be something about this that is encouraging us to go deeper. That if there is this surface level energy, there can feel like there's this pull from the fate, from source, from God,
Yeah.
that is actually pulling us deeper to recognize, again, coming back to this concept of who we innately are, recognizing that moon on the north node, it feels, especially in Pisces,
Yeah.
this is like this screams this sort of deeper cosmic
Yeah.
consciousness, like of emerging, like of recognizing that coming out of the body, coming out of the physical body and recognizing the actual body, like recognizing all of that. It just feels very powerful, like it does. There's this power to this that this eclipse can have.
Yeah.
um at the same token, like I said, Venus in Leo and Mars in Libra can have they're gonna want their energy as well.
Yep.
Venus wants her attention, and Mars loves beautiful things. And so there's
Everybody gets to be here, right? It's not
exactly,
about, yep.
but
Mhm.
there may be this pull of this of into the Pisces world, into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if that little boy is gonna take a leap.
I want to support what you and I love that yours is a little boy. Like who knows? Everybody has their own, but I like so I know you're not.
I just
I know you have a personal subjective experience with it.
I know.
You but I want to say because you were talking in this full moon before I read this part, and you hadn't heard me read this part before. Now is that you're talking about cleansing, and so I want to read
Yeah,
this bit again because this you said it and it's here. You talked about the toilet bowl and the south node where
yeah.
we those pieces. So this last bit again, the inner life is boundlessly rich. The outer life is starkly poor, but you live within. Make good on the past, cleanse and open, and know that nothing is as it seems, and form is tissue thin.
I love that.
I just want to say like it really aligns different words, right? But it really
Yeah.
we're having a lot of lovely, different
Synchronizations, the energy is there, and how it shows up in your chart and in your life, it's interesting.
yeah.
um Again, I would do a guided meditation or visualization or
Yeah.
creative exercise with Venus in Leo,
Yeah.
and I would visualize or create a piece of art with your inner child sitting on the cliff.
Mhm. And if you're not into
And
art, then just automatic writing is great.
yeah, and what are you on the precipice of, and what do you see, what do you feel? Like I would try to allow your imagination to take over.
Yeah.
Allow the imagination to take over here, because this could be a wildly creative experience.
And one thing, it sounds simple, but one thing that helps me sort of with the things that have seemed more disruptive or difficult from the past that I'm still working with. Sometimes, like if I imagine myself on that precipice, if I were to look back and say, thank you for getting me this far, right? You got
Yeah,
me this far, all those things. And now I'm going here. It allows you to have both, right?
totally.
There's that. And then also there are things from the past that trust me, just like those bits of nuggets in the toilet bowl, which are actually good ones, not the ones you want.
Yeah, the
And
treasures.
that there's stuff that you want to come with you, right?
Totally.
Now, I know we're about to run out of time, and I don't. We got to at least talk about the new moon partial solar eclipse. I
Yeah.
want to just note that on Saturday, September 13th, there is Mercury
Because
Cazimi, which it's in Virgo. So I'll say my wordplay, maybe it's Kazimago or Kazigo, right? I love playing
yeah,
around with the sign that it's in. But Mercury will be conjunct the sun that day, and the South Node is right there too in Virgo. So we've
yep,
already talked a lot about this energy, but I feel like there could be more moments to sort of plant new seeds or new ways of thinking. There could be a new illumination of the mind that allows
yeah,
us to see some of these things more clearly. So I don't know if
totally.
you had more to add to that, but that's kind of my very quick, down and dirty version of that one.
I love it. I think that's great. I think having this just with the South Node as well, if you have any random ideas that are coming to you, they're not random.
Yeah, nice.
Write them down. Um, because they might have a meaning for you for something in your future. And that's on the 13th. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was looking at that's the solar eclipse. And I coming into the I would say that last week of September,
Hmm.
before the eclipse is a super, super packed week
Oh,
astrologically. There's a lot of transits that are happening that we would have to do a whole
yes.
segment just on this week. So I feel like, in a way, though, it does kind of blend into the solar eclipse.
Mm,
I feel like even though it's a partial solar eclipse, it's at the anaretic degree. I feel like everything that's kind of happening, kind of, I feel like is building